The garrison of Theta 7 had withstood siege for 43 days. Kennedy pressed her scaled hand against the reinforced viewport, watching the Krell bombardment light up the methane sky in violent purples and greens. Behind her, the command center buzzed with desperate activity, officers shouting coordinates, medics rushing wounded through corridors, engineers frantically rerouting power from failing systems. "Status report," she commanded, her translator converting her clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. "Eastern wall at 18% integrity," her tactical officer responded, his carapace dulled from stress. "The siege gate is holding, but barely. Once it falls, they'll flood the compound." Kennedy had fought in 7 campaigns across 4 systems. She'd earned her rank through cunning, not strength. Her species, the Velcorians, were strategists by nature, not warriors. But 43 days had taught her something about warfare that no academy could. Sometimes, all the strategy in the universe couldn't stop pure, overwhelming force. "Time until the gate fails?" she asked. 2 hours. Maybe 3. She turned from the viewport, her mind already calculating evacuation routes, defensive fallback positions, acceptable losses. The math was brutal. They wouldn't make it. That's when Josiah walked into the command center. The human moved with that peculiar gait his kind possessed, not the efficient scuttle of her people, nor the graceful glide of the phalanx, but something else entirely. Something that looked almost lazy until you realized how much ground he covered with each stride. He wore standard infantry armor, scarred and scorched from the siege, and his dark eyes surveyed the room with an intensity that made Kennedy's sensory fronds twitch. "Commander," he said, his voice low and rumbling. "Permission to speak." Kennedy had never understood why the Galactic Council had been so hesitant to recruit humans. They'd only joined the Coalition 15 years ago, their small world called Earth contributing a mere 10,000 soldiers to an army of billions. Some called them weak, others primitive. But Kennedy had read the classified reports, the ones the Council tried to bury. She'd seen what happened when humans were cornered. "Granted, Private Josiah." "The siege gate," he said. "Let me handle it." Her translator struggled with the phrase. Handle it. As if it were a simple task. As if it weren't a 40-ton Durasteel barrier designed to withstand capital ship bombardment. "Explain," she said. Josiah stepped closer to the tactical display, where the gate's structural diagram rotated in red-tinted holograms. His fingers, those strange, dexterous appendages, traced the weak points. "The Krell have been hammering the same spot for 3 days. The molecular bonds are stressed, but not broken. If someone could apply localized force to the damaged sections from the inside, create a controlled failure, we could collapse it inward instead of outward." "Collapse it? That would seal us in." "No." His lips pulled back in that human expression, a smile, though there was nothing pleasant in it. "It would buy you time. 30 hours, maybe more. Long enough for the relief fleet." Kennedy's fronds stiffened. "The calculations alone would require—" "I don't need calculations," Josiah interrupted, and she would have reprimanded him if not for what he said next. "I can feel it. The stress points. The way metal fatigues. It's in my bones." The command center had gone quiet. Every officer, every soldier, was watching the exchange. Kennedy had heard the whispers, of course. Every veteran had. Stories traded in mess halls and medical bays. Always third-hand, always dismissed as myth. Tales of humans doing impossible things when pushed to their limits. Earthborn doom, they called it. That moment when a human's survival instinct overrode every rational constraint. "You're proposing to damage the gate yourself?" she said carefully. "With what weapons?" Josiah held up his hands. Those bizarre, 5-fingered appendages that seemed too fragile for warfare. "These." Someone laughed. It died quickly. Kennedy studied the human. She'd served alongside his kind for 6 months now, and she'd learned something crucial. Humans didn't bluff. They might joke, might use strange idioms, might confuse her translator with their metaphors. But when a human looked you in the eye and stated something as fact, you believed them or you learned to regret it. "You'll die," she said simply. "Maybe." He shrugged, another peculiar human gesture. "Maybe not. But this garrison survives either way." The choice wasn't really a choice. 2 hours until the gate failed, or 30 hours if this madness somehow worked. Kennedy gave the order. Josiah descended to the siege gate alone. Kennedy watched through security feeds as he approached the massive barrier, its surface already glowing red from sustained bombardment. The Krell weapons had carved deep gouges into the durasteel, each impact sending shockwaves through the structure that registered on seismic monitors. The human removed his gloves, pressed his bare palms against the metal, and then he began to work. Kennedy had witnessed many strange things in her military career: quantum rifts that bent light, biological weapons that rewrote DNA, ships that moved between stars. But nothing prepared her for what she watched over the next 4 hours. Josiah didn't strike the gate randomly. His movements were precise, almost surgical. He found stress fractures invisible to sensors and drove his fingers into them. Where metal had crystallized from heat exposure, he applied pressure until molecular bonds snapped. He climbed the 40-meter gate like it was natural terrain, hanging from damaged sections, using his own body weight to lever pieces apart. His hands bled. The medical officer monitoring his vitals reported bone fractures in both wrists, 3 fingers, stress fractures in both radial bones. But Josiah didn't stop. "He's singing," the communications officer said suddenly. Kennedy listened to the audio feed. It was true. Between grunts of exertion, Josiah was singing something in his native language. The translator offered, "Steel and stone, break the throne." "It's an old human works song," one of the other human soldiers explained, his voice reverent. "From Earth. Before the coalition. Before we reached the stars." The gate began to fail exactly as Josiah had predicted. Not an explosive breach, but a controlled collapse. Massive sections folding inward, creating a chaotic lattice that would take the Krell days to cut through. Josiah rode the falling metal down, jumping from piece to piece with that unnatural human agility, until he landed in a crouch on the compound floor. Kennedy met him at the medical bay. His hands were wrapped in regenerative bandages, his face pale from blood loss and exertion. But he was alive. 31 hours, she said. "The relief fleet arrives in 29. Josiah nodded, too exhausted for words. "How did you know?" she asked. "How did you know it would work?" He was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried something ancient, not just his own experience, but the weight of his entire species. "My people have been breaking things and putting them back together since before we had words for it. Sometimes with tools, sometimes with our hands. It's what we do." The relief fleet arrived 18 hours early. Theta, 7 held. And across a dozen species, in 100 different languages, soldiers whispered a new phrase into their combat logs. Earthborn doom. Not a threat. Not a weapon. A promise.